So we're back with another Bryan Danielson AEW run match, and today we are covering our match number 39, which is our third match with Hangman Adam Page in the Grand Slam tournament. It's the tournament for the AEW belt. It's obviously a small thing. It's going on for the whole thing after the belt was vacated. I think this was vacated due to Punk at the time. I forget if it was Brawl Out or not. I forget what the exact situation was. However, that is what we're doing. And yes, it is Hangman versus Bryan 3. Now, from our perspective, obviously, you know, we've already covered the previous matches. They're really, really good. I think the Winter is Coming match is one of Hangman's best in AEW as well as Bryan's. So, you know, that's a high bar for both just incredible wrestlers. And you can see here straight away, they have that chemistry. It's just so unspeakable. There's just the chemistry between the two. What I've realised what it is when you watch the match, like just between any match between them, but I think this one really summed it up for me. The reason these two work so well is not just because the two are the best wrestlers ever, for me, the two of my favourite wrestlers ever, but also Bryan works as, you know, the underdog, the nimble guy, and he's so technical, you know what I mean? That's the whole thing with Bryan. But obviously he hits hard, and, you know, just so many words you could describe Bryan. Perfection. But with Hangman, what works is Hangman's got the stature over Bryan, and he has that hard-hitting nature, but Hangman can also move, like, really well, and, like, they're not the traditional style of wrestlers, the pair of them, so it kind of makes this just beautiful blend of just chemistry between the two. What I love about the matches in this match, the atmosphere alone, is just, it's really good. It's a very tight match. It feels like a big deal, not in terms of, like, a big match feel, but it feels like, okay, we're getting a solid banger, and it's not as good as the Winter is Coming match for me, but, like, it's really high level. It's still just a high level wrestling match between, again, two of the world's best. And you're watching it, and, like, I love how instantly, like, they go for a bit of lockups, and then Bryan starts doing, like, you know, the wind up to Hangman thing, because he knows that will get under his skin by rolling out. Then when he gets dragged back in, Hangman catches him and then throws him out, you know, shit like that. Now, what I like during the match is Bryan's really targeting the arm from Hangman. Bryan's really targeting Hangman's arm and shoulder, like, really heavily. And, like, to the sense of he's just kicking that arm, kicking the shoulder. He does the beginner spot where he's got the arm behind the back and throws him to the post. The arm is red. Now, at this point, Bryan's really gaining control. Like, he has a point where Hangman's on the barrier outside the ring, and Bryan just comes up and just starts fucking, like, I think it's a psycho, but I think he just volleys it, just the fucking arm. It's like he's really targeting it. Obviously, you get a lot of, you know, there's a moment where, like, Hangman obviously tries to get up and, you know, try and fight it back, and there's a point where, obviously, they have the corner cam, Bryan does the flip behind, and, you know, that sort of deal. It's very much that match, like, you can tell the history's there, you can tell they're not taking each other lightly, and that's what I like. There's not really a lot of, you know, I was going to say there's not really a lot of jovial moments, but there's obviously a point where, so, like, Bryan's doing the arm crank, and then he, like, waves his hips. I don't know why I'm doing it. And then, you know, he, like, continues to do it, like, but that's, like, the only thing, really. As it continues more and more, like, Hangman does get, obviously, some resilience, and, like, the thing is, what I think's quite wild is Hangman still does the lariats with the arms, and he sells it, like, quite and a lot for a good bit, but then he doesn't at the same time. Like, after a while, it just kind of wears off, and I'm like, well, I would have just had that, like, a collapsing thing. That's what I think would have made sense, but they don't do that. Again, a lot of kicks, a lot of beauty. Like, Hangman's really aerial in this match, which is very, not unusual. How for Hangman, we obviously know he's got that aerial just capability because he's that good, but there's a lot of, obviously, dives. There's a lot of, I think there's a dive and lariat, which will look pretty cool. But even just in the sense of, like, just the moonsaults, there's, like, one where they go for a springboard, and I think it messes Bryan up. It's weird. But it's, like, that's kind of, like, a good little moment. It's, like, it's one of those matches where it's not the most stellar. It's not the most, like, oh, my God, unbelievable, you know, you need to watch this. Like, frankly, like the Winter is Coming matches, it's not. It's two great wrestlers who've taken each other very seriously in the most part, just putting on, frankly, a classic clinic. And it's not one of those all-timers. It's just a great, great example of just high-level wrestling. And honestly, it's like, it's when you look at the Hangman and Bryan, like, saga, because I think there's one more after this between the two of them one-on-one. And it's like, this is kind of the least talk about one, debatably maybe the next one. But, like, I think this one's just a great standard setter between the two. It shows that they're level. It just shows how high level these are. But also, like, I'm trying to think of a way to truly articulate it. It's not trying to blow everyone out the water. It's just putting on just a great match. And it's one of those matches where, because of the run that we're doing with Bryan Danielson in his AEW run, these are the type of matches, kind of like the Suzuki match, obviously you don't expect to love as much as do. I really like this. I really enjoyed this. I expected to. It's Hangman and Bryan. But, like, you know, compared to the other two, you don't really get this tough. But you're like, oh, there must be some bullshit. No, it's a pretty well thought out match. Obviously, you know, psychology. Obviously, the arm is really targeted. But then, even then, further on, it's just that, again, that, like, just atmosphere it kind of creates. It's really good. You can tell the crowd wants Bryan to win. You can tell they do show shots of Jericho watching and stuff. He's backstage, but, you know, kind of it. So Hangman continues to get more into the match, and then it's just a lot of reversals, a lot of like the psycho knees hit like crack, and there's like a lot of like shit, like where there's a lot of catches from Hangman where he's throwing them. He done that one early, and he does another one later, and I do like it's just the chemistry. Frankly, the chemistry just carries the match. It's not like, that's what I feel like a good way to describe it is because they're not trying to outdo themselves each time. Bryan's just being Bryan, and Hangman's just being Hangman. Hangman's being Bryan. But you know what I mean? Like, they're both just being themselves, not really altering the styles, and just going for it. Just, you know what I mean? This could be against anyone, but because it's against these two, against each other, and, you know, they've got that chemistry already, it's just great. Like, that's just a great way to describe it. And it's really, really good. Really good. The finish I really like. I like the intensity of the finish. So, like, Hangman gets outside. So he gets Bryan down. I think he gets Bryan down. He does hit a dead eye. The dead eye is beautiful. And I think he goes for he goes outside the ring after that to get a buckshot set up. Bryan sees it and rolls out straight away. And it's like, you know, Bryan knows. He's not stupid, obviously. And then when they get back in, it's very much, you know, bing, bing, bang, like the setting up the lariat. It's like Hangman goes for the lariat. Bryan ducks underneath. He goes for a Psycho knee, lands the Psycho, and goes for the hold on the shoulder. Hangman somehow kicks out, and then I think it's it's a bit involving the ropes, and Hangman goes to the ropes, and then Bryan gets it right. I think Hangman was gonna set up a buckshot. And then Bryan follows him, and then Bryan gets him, does basically a suplex. And then just, because Bryan does a Rana, if I'm not mistaken, one of them does a Rana early on, I forgot to mention that, that was pretty cool, remember that? And then Bryan gets the fucking, the roll up essentially, but it's the pin he gets, that's the finish, is a roll up pin over Hangman. And the crowd blows, it's like, oh fuck! And like, this is in the middle of Dynamite, so it doesn't really linger on the reaction that much. You get straight into a Jungle Boy promo. But like, it's a pretty good Jungle Boy promo, to be fair. But, and it basically, that's it. But like, I love how the crowd really sell it. Like, really sell that roll up. And like, normally roll-ups are very hard to kind of do, you know, kind of hard to, like, you know, make work, you know, unless it's an underdog. But with someone, again, these two, there's no real underdog. It's really well, like, the crowd reaction really adds to it, because everyone wanted Bryan to win going into it, as they should, but also, it very much sets the, like, it protects Hangman. A roll-up does protect Hangman in this win, and that's what's kind of cool. But obviously, Bryan gets the win, you know, he walks out, you know, both of them, Hangman looks a bit, like, distraught, but you could tell it weren't going his way. The arm is completely destroyed throughout most of the match, and that is the match. Now, it's one of the, it's like a 20-minute match, I'd say. It's a solid-ass match, and I think for me, obviously it shows Jericho, again, he's not happy. So it's like, I think that's the thing, even like, you know, back then you're watching it, and you're like, I assume live anyway, and you're just like, they just face Jericho, is that why? But yeah, and they really make a point for Hangman. I like how that was really conveyed too, where they're really putting it over on commentary that, like, Hangman wants to go back at Jericho for obviously the original pay-per-view. Hangman does get a lot of stuff in. I don't think I talked about that enough. Hangman gets a lot of stuff in, like, especially in this little comeback phase of the match. Like, there's a point where he gets Bryan on the barrier outside, and he just goes up and, like, basically dives onto it. Cause obviously, because Bryan did the same to him. Bryan obviously does a lot of kicks, you know, there's a lot of kicks on Bryan. It's more kicks. They do have a head-to-head spot, then they start striking each other, which is obviously Hangman's powers really, you know, sold more than, you know, anything really from him, as Bryan's technical abilities sold for him. It's just a solid, great match. And I don't know if that sounds disappointing in any way, because it's definitely not. It's absolutely great. But it's more in the sense of, like, it's not like the best match of Bryan's run, no, but it's one of the highest level. It just solidifies to me. This is one of those matches that solidifies the greatness of Bryan and Hangman's, like, this rivalry. It really does. And I mean from that sense, it's because with that, you have, this is their worst match, for lack of a better term, and it's still a ridiculously high level. Like, this is them just going at it for, this is a basic TV match, frankly. But, like, in the sense of, like, the outlook on it. But then, they've still managed to put on, they definitely matched the night. I didn't even watch the rest of the matches. But, like, most definitely matched the night. It was phenomenal. It was a really good match. And, obviously, it does lead on to our next round. Hangman will be facing Chris Jericho again. I don't want to talk about who else is in the tournament, because, obviously, that gives it away for some matches. But Bryan gets Chris Jericho. Jericho's not happy. Hangman just, you know, kind of just, I forget what Hangman does after this, to be honest. But I thought this was really good. I thought this was a solid match. I think it was a great show up for Hangman and Bryan. It felt like, honestly, it felt like the whole thing was just go out and do whatever. And I feel like that's what they needed to do. Like, again, not needed to do, but that's what they can just do that. Like, that's the level they're at. They can just do that and it works. And not a lot of wrestlers get that. I feel like you hear that a lot of the time. Like, wrestler podcasts and interviews and stuff, are like, oh, we just went out and done whatever, brother. And it's like, well, only a certain, like, I don't think a lot of wrestlers who aren't high level can do that. I think once you're really, really high level, at least from an outside perspective, that's what makes it work. But I liked it. I liked this match a lot, actually. More, I thought it was great, even. And yeah, honestly, solid match. It builds us up for, so our next match will be Chris Jericho in the semi-final of this tournament. But I thought this match was great. Obviously, nice to see Hangman. Big Hangman fan, and obviously, huge Bryan fan. This was great. I thought this was one of the better matches we've covered, most definitely. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Bryan Danielson versus Hangman Adam Page in their third match on their little tournament for the title tournament. Let me know what you think of the match, obviously, if you've ever seen it, and let me know what you think of Bryan, Hangman, whatever, because obviously the run is something that I really enjoy doing.